Let's do this for real.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to the Guitar Shop Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 2. Coming to you from beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is Wade's Guitar Shop. I am Wade Stark, still owner of Wade's Guitar Shop.
And I'm Dan Hintz, still not working at Wade's Guitar Shop anymore.
And I forgot who the hell I am. I am Alex, the manager of Wade's Guitar Shop.
Johnny Belldog.
Johnny Belldog.
Slick 40. How old are you now, by the way?
35?
35. Slick 35.
So there's no way you can be 40. But anyway, we go on.
And you feel
so there's no way I can.
At any time you need to chime in with an old dude.
How am I catching up with you? This is insane.
It's weird. I've stayed the same age, and you've just gotten older.
Check us out on the website, wadesguitarshop.com. Click on the podcast link. Check us out. All episodes are on iTunes, Miro, the Zune Marketplace, and we are now on our YouTube channel, the Guitar Shop Podcast. Definitely check that out too. Questions and comments, send them to wadesguitarsshop@sbcglobal.net. I'll have to bring that up in post too.
Actually, can you pitch
harmony?
Correct it so I sound. Actually, can you pitch correct my whole the whole episode so I can sound like Lil Wayne?
I'm gonna make us all sound like
that. Would be great if our voices were all monotone for the whole episode.
Just so you know.
Oh, and definitely.
Hey, Macarena. Aye. Yeah, sorry.
That's not even close to anywhere near
I know,
the
I don't know
genre
where that came from.
And like us on Facebook to complete the quadfecta of ways that you can find us on the internet. But we are right here, coming to you live, and we've got a few things to talk about tonight, and somewhat limited time because I seem to be overwriting stories for the podcast these days, and they wind up getting cut. So we're going to jump right in.
So we're live now, but when they're watching it, are we live?
Well,
I hope I'm going to be still alive when you're watching this.
We're definitely being preempted right now for the U.S. Open, which I think Tiger Woods was winning earlier today. But
that's a grass thing, right? Like the Wimbledon there?
Yeah.
Clay?
Something like that.
They play that on clay then, or
Wimbledon.
The Wimbledon.
When last we left off here at the Guitar Shop Podcast, Alex was holding a 12-string guitar, which is right there.
I think that was a...
Would you like to grab that, Dan? That there Rickenbacker.
12-string. Oh, Rickenbacker, right.
Rickenbacker. Who wants to hold it?
You can hold it this time, because Alex was holding it last time. And,
very good, and I don't know.
Way too many knobs here.
Oh, they don't have the slit through the...
No, well, so odd you should point that out. So this is the Rickenbacker 360 12 C63, basically the reissue. .net.
Sorry.
There we got the .net. I'll take that one and put it back earlier.
Oh, yeah.
You're losing me.
You're losing me.
So this is basically the reissue of the George Harrison Rickenbacker 12-string. But the reason why we brought a Rickenbacker out last episode, we were going to talk about Rickenbackers, was that I think there's a lot of people who are under the misconception, first of all, where Rickenbackers are made. So I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about the history of Rickenbacker and the fact that they are not made where, Alex?
In Austria or Germany.
Or
Switzerland.
Or
England.
Well, and of course that is where most people think Rickenbackers are made, because with the British invasion back in the day, a lot of the British bands were playing Rickenbackers.
Doesn't look like a surf guitar.
It does not. Well,
the Beatles played in Germany, and then You know, where did they get the guitars?
Yeah.
Right around the corner from the club, probably.
The Voxes are made in Kenosha. I knew that.
Those
Okay,
are
anyways.
Echoes. Those are Echoes. They look like Foxes.
They're in a warehouse in Kenosha. I think they're actually made in Korea, China.
Oh. I'm not talking about right now. You know
What
what
are
I'm
you
saying?
talking about? Like,
So yeah, so Rickenbackers are made in California, where they have actually been made since the company started in the late 1930s.
and that's in Santa Poco? Santa Ana, right?
Or is it San Luis?
No, it's in
No,
Acapulco.
you're right,
Santa Ana, California.
I always
Yeah.
get that mixed up with Ernie Ball is in
We should
San,
give her a
San
shout
Luis
out to
Obispo.
Richard. I rep there at Santa Ana.
Yes. And to all the gang, the small and awesome gang at Rickenbacker for
Yeah.
continuing to make such a great product. And well, so the great thing about Rickenbacker today is still small company, very very personalized, unwilling to sort of grow at the times when the demand goes way up because they've got a good thing and what could be wrong with having high demand for your instruments.
Yeah, and don't
I gotta say nothing.
dummy them down or anything.
Well, you can be the player right now, so you can strum us out a little.
Well,
It's been a hard day.
pretty much it. Yeah, one chord. And you've played the hardest Beatles chord to achieve on such an instrument.
She's so.
Nice. I like the different knobs.
Well, what you were
sort of-
talking about when you kind of pointed up to the headstock here is
Yeah,
one
there's
of,
usually there's a slot in the headstock to allow.
right. So back in the day, all Rickenbackers were like this, where they had these little channels routed up here on the headstock that allowed the 6 tuning keys for the in-between strings to go into that little slot in the headstock, which requires you to feed your string down into that little slot and kind of.
That's how you do it.
That's why
I've been rocking 6.
all my fingertips are bleeding and.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why it takes
It
them 2
works.
days to restring
So
it.
yeah, you can't see all the way through the headstock like you used to.
Right. So
I'm
about 10 years.
restringing my Rickenbacker, and something bad is happening. It's all right. I'm going to talk you down.
Oh, there's a very. I'm not even going to go there. There's a very funny story about a Rickenbacker 12-string owner many years ago who had a panic far worse than hell. But
Oh, I'm your only
yes, yes. So about 10 years ago, Rickenbacker started routing those little slots all the way through the headstock so that you could actually push the string out the back and very easily maneuver it through those little slots. So that's what you were looking for. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
So on the back, it's solid.
So now they just route it sort of 3/4 of the way through, and
Well, no, this is a vintage reissue. So the vintage reissues
they're
are made
true to,
absolutely authentic, and the new ones, which we do have a 12 about here somewhere, but
Gorgeous.
they're routed all the way through the headstock.
this
one
is
back?
Yeah, we'll
there
take
you
a
go.
look at that one.
slightly Townsend-esque as well.
Yeah. So the pickups on
very
here.
can't explain.
Yeah, yeah. So this is sort of the modern version of that. The softer contours
And the
Found on one
the
side.
openings right through the headstock.
all the way through there, see, mate?
Don't poke yourself.
Toaster pickups
Notice
here.
the pickups?
So single coil pickups on either of these.
Notice the tailpiece.
These are called toaster pickups because they kind of look like a toaster from the top. These are high gain pickups because they kind of look like a high gain from the top.
And that one's made in England.
As that little sticker says right there.
Made in the United Province of England.
Made in America. But this was just one of those little things that we thought we had a few minutes at the end of the last episode to bring up. Rickenbacker as being this great little American company that a lot of people do mistake as being a British company, but a fine California product going
happy to have
back
them.
to the 30s, yeah.
And order them ahead of time.
Did you know the frying pan was one of the first electric guitars?
Yes, it was also the first mass-produced electric Spanish guitar.
Yeah. Can we show a little picture?
I can.
of
You
the
can point anywhere
frying
here.
pan? Here's they call it the frying pan because it's round here.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about that thing that I have at home that makes me really incredibly fat.
I was going to say something absolutely horrible, and I didn't. So now, aren't you proud of me?
High in the middle and round on both ends, Ohio. Yeah.
Coconut oil. It's better for you.
Okay, let's jump on here. I put together
Jump on it.
for you guys a little bunch of. Don't mind the all important
Ghost-like clock.
Paranormal Activity 4.
Let's go back to the little waiting thing.
My shirt goes.
The doppelganger episode.
I should have some real fun in post with that one.
With the post with the axe and the musical notes are coming out of my skull.
Okay.
What I have compiled for you lads is
And lettuces.
very
Yes, thank you.
Glasses.
Sorry.
very often when we are behind the counter, and when Dan used to be behind the counter, we wind up being either bartender or sort of the Dear Abby, the guitar advice people. So these are some questions
I get what you're saying.
of
See, I
people
was wondering.
seeking guitar advice. These are all actual
Guitar
questions.
playing is a very emotionally involved endeavor.
Yes. Well, therefore, then, these are simplified. You guys can actually read into them if you want and add the deep emotions. So,
Something flying around my face.
We're gonna- That's going to be another great post shot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think.
yeah, I think this episode has already
Oh, I'll
got
get the
its
second
name.
one. Yeah, no.
Like
It's
a
all-
hummingbird by my face.
it's all-
Slowly we're
post.
turning into frogs through the whole episode. Yeah.
Close that closet with all the old.
We call it Ghost Frog
Yeah.
episode. That's it. Yeah.
Question number one.
Oh, right.
Should I get a mahogany acoustic or a rosewood acoustic? What's the difference between mahogany and rosewood? As sort
Money.
of,
Price.
I'm sorry.
well,
Part
well,
of it.
Traditionally, that is the case, but unfortunately now with the issues with
That's the first
hardwoods-
thing you see on the surface. And why? Take it away.
What am I answering?
That guy over there. Pass it on
Oh,
to
that
him.
guy. Oh, okay. What, just between mahogany and rosewood?
Well,
One being, generally speaking, rosewood is more expensive. But as I think Wade was alluding towards, mahogany, good guitar grade North American mahogany, or even just mahogany in general as a species, is more endangered and harder to procure large, wonderfully guitar grade oriented pieces. So that may shift. So one
We're
issue
talking
is-
about mahogany right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Because
not the rosewood.
no rosewood, Indian
Rosewood is
rosewood.
actually
Although
More abundant right now?
it's yeah. There's certainly more of a supply of
Things have
rosewood coming from
changed a little
India.
bit since-
in just a few years.
Just a few years here.
Well, the mahogany thing's been been out on the horizon. I think
I
that's
personally
been,
like mahogany guitars. I think they
I do
sound
too.
kind of warm and
Well,
woody and
Yeah, so I mean, to talk about that then. So I mean, skipping the price, and well, the reason why the price is changing so much is because like real mahogany, for the most part, only comes from Central America, the northern part of the South American continent.
Yeah,
it's a pretty limited area where genuine mahogany comes from. You know, back in the day they called it Honduran mahogany.
what's the African mahogany? What is that called? again?
Sapel or sapelli,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
which to my ears sounds very, very similar, and it is a cousin of the mahogany, but
Well,
it
if
looks different.
Martin uses
and-
it
yeah.
in place of mahogany, it must sound. I mean, they must have done their testing.
Well, trust me, there's
Yeah.
there's a day
You'd
there's a
think.
day around the corner when you're going to see Les Pauls with sapelli backs and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
carved birch tops.
I've
I'm
seen.
sure.
Well,
I'm
I've
sure.
seen. I believe I've seen, at least look-wise, sapelli backs on Epiphone Les Pauls. You know, they may call it African. I mean, I don't know if they even called it African
might even
mahogany,
just-
but it sure as heck look. Generally speaking, when there is a visual difference, the sapelli or African mahogany tends to have these sort of ribbon bands, these
Right.
sort of bands, and the traditional
I think it's cool.
Honduran.
I think it
or
looks great.
The yeah, it's cool looking. The regular sort of mahogany from the Americas is more got these little tiny lines, less of that sort of.
Very
Sometimes
speckly
you'll
and
see
uniform.
sorts-
more of a
exactly,
solid-
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's obviously, well, not obviously, because this is what we're trying to teach you. There are things like burled mahogany, which has a lot of figuring to it, quilted mahogany, very much like quilted maple. But for the most part, what you're seeing in, you know, Martin D18s and, you know, on the backs of Gibson Les Pauls and Les Paul Juniors and whatnot is traditional American, you know, Central and South American mahogany, which is very figureless, just
Yeah,
a
and
very
that's-
uniform, speckly little pockmarked grain marks. And
Yeah, and I think when I was using that term like guitar grade, you know, I think people are looking for a sonic aspect to it by tapping on it or whatever witchcraft they use. But they're also looking for a D18 to have, two perfectly uniform book matched.
Yeah.
They're not looking for it to be. If they're looking for it to be figured, it has to be pretty spectacular.
Right.
So mahogany either has to have wonderful ribbon, mahogany figuring, or it needs to be very symmetrical and very sort of uniform. I think.
I dig that.
No, that's
dig that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means,
well, but on the other
for pieces this big to make,
On the other side of it, well then, in comparison, how do you feel about the tone of rosewood or
versus mahogany?
Yeah.
Let's talk about let's talk about the general differences between the two. Let's say you take two identical instruments, one with mahogany back and sides and one with rosewood back and sides. As simply as you could describe, what's the difference between those two? How would you describe it?
The cutting to the chase as simply as possible, I generally say the mahogany is a frown and the rosewood is a smile.
Scoop mid.
Yeah. The generally speaking, a spruce top mahogany back acoustic is going to have a ton of mid-range, all in the middle. It's just going to be warm, in your face. So sometimes people hear that right away and they go, "Oh, that one's great because it's affecting all the frequencies that really make my ears tickle." Sometimes the rosewood is either kind of flat in the mids and boosted in the lows and highs, or even recessed in the mids. That's kind of what I'm looking for out of rosewood, is not recessed mids, but real defined bass
and
really sparkly.
I think both are equally useful.
Yeah. Exactly, and the other thing that I usually say to people is when they ask that question, should I buy rosewood or mahogany, I'll say, well, if you buy rosewood, you'll be back in 6 months to get a mahogany, whichever one you don't have. But they really are the yin and the yang of the acoustic guitar world. There's lots of other woods that we use, but those are the two biggies. Yeah. And they are different. They're very sonically different. So it really depends on what your ears like and what you're trying to do with them.
Well, I think back in the day, even maybe as little ago as like 25, 30 years ago, but certainly 50 to 75 years ago, rosewood was the expensive instrument. If you had a lot of money, you bought a rosewood guitar.
Absolutely, that was the top
If you were on a
line.
budget, you got mahogany.
And that's what I was under the impression.
Well, that's the stigma that has survived, is that mahogany is sort of the cheaper wood, the cheaper guitar. And I think a lot of the forums and stuff online still sort of perpetuate that, but not the case. Mahogany is especially if you get like a really nice higher-end solid mahogany guitar. It's its own sound, and it's fantastic. My main guitar is a Martin 0018, an old beat-up one from the 50s. And
I'm still rocking my 000. What is it?
15.
15? Yeah.
All mahogany, top, back, and sides. Yeah.
Love that thing.
And yours probably is mahogany from the year you bought.
It's got a lot of character to it. Yeah. That's why I said.
Like I said, when we get it, they used to offer a guitar that was called the 15 series. It was all mahogany, top, back, and sides. And then at some point they said it's either mahogany or Sapel.
You get what you get.
Just kind of get what you get, and now the I guess that's the other thing. The new D15M is a true mahogany guitar, and you're paying a little extra for it. They're about $975. What you pay for yours?
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Yeah, $600 or $700. So.
All right, I'm going to skip that one.
I'm moving right along.
On a desert island, what pedals?
The keeper of the time.
Pedals. Would you?
Okay, here's what I put on here, because this was a question that came up when you still worked here, and this was a great question because you schooled me that day, and
How long are you going to be working?
You did school. What key of harmonica should I buy to go with my guitar?
Oh.
And because everybody seemed like they were always coming in buying harmonicas to play the blues, I would always say you've got to buy the cross harp, which is the fourth of the key you're playing in.
See, that kind of stuff doesn't make any sense to me when you speak this way.
I know, but you stepped in and said, no.
I relate it to guitar scales, like how you transpose a pentatonic to work with
a pentagrammic.
That'll be interesting.
There is a trick that I use.
And the devil
you can use. And now.
Sorry.
Let me know when we can do this.
Welcome to the Guitar Shop Podcast.
All right, so here's how I'm going to lay it out for you. Here's how I'm going to lay it out.
Yeah, no, this is good.
Maybe we should do some acoustics.
No, you should just
grab one of those arch tops, something that's loud enough that
I want
that we can
grab that gold.
Actually, I'm going to use Alex to help me out with this.
All right.
Okay.
So,
Oh yeah,
because-
I'll take the Alden.
whichever one's more
This has a big
open.
Not too loud,
Okay.
because he'll be quiet.
How's your A? Are we good?
Well, I'm playing in A sharp, but I think that's okay.
Well, it's either. Yeah.
Play
All right. What's up?
an A chord so he knows where he is.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Alright, we're in the ballpark.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna have you jump to E.
What? I just tuned to A.
Play and okay.
Okay. It's
So to me, pentatonic scale, the most famous position or pattern, you know, is the 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4. Correct?
Yep.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
Now, depending on what you use as a root note is going to give you either a major or a minor sound. I know you're falling asleep,
No, I'm
but
hot.
listen to me. Check this out,
Okay,
though.
check it out.
So,
If you use that,
So strum an E chord.
play 12 bar in E. Watch me for the changes and try to keep up, okay? So if you start with your first finger, your typical pentatonic,
Okay.
first finger's the root note, the E.
Right.
It's going to sound more minor, more dark.
Right.
Now, keep going. You use your pinky as the root note. Correct?
Okay.
It's going to sound much more happy, much more like a major scale. Much less like you're going to go off the deep end, right? So wait, this has something to do with harmonica.
So if you want to sound minory and bluesy, you buy the cross harp, which is the fourth. And if you
Yes.
want to sound kind of melodic and more sort of upbeat and folky, you buy it in the key that you're playing in.
Yes,
Yeah.
playing in G, you want it to sound happy and folky.
Sharp.
Oh.
You lost me.
All right, so remember that. Cross harp fourth for the blues, and buy it in the key that you're playing in for the more melodic, folky kind of sound.
And if you get really freaking good, you can.
And I'm
do
glad
a little
he
bit more
knows
than that.
he
Yeah.
can make that into what that connection.
We'll do it all in post.
by what I showed you.
Yeah. This is all a green screen behind us, so we'll
What
just,
you showed
Because
me,
I still don't completely understand it, but it works.
Yeah.
what you showed me that day, I have never forgotten, and I'm less of a bluesy kind of guy and more of kind of a folky, melodic kind of thing, and
There you go.
nobody ever showed me how to apply that. Okay,
Good stuff.
should I replace my plastic acoustic bridge saddle with bone? And to answer this question the most accurately, we're going to send it over to 2 minutes with Garrett. Can you take that over to Garrett?
I'm Garrett, and this is my 2 minutes.
I need a bone nut on here, stat.
All right, dude. I'm working on your strat setup right now, but if you need it done, if you need tone to the bone,
I need tone immediately.
I can make that happen, dude.
I'm gonna go take this to my Hendrix luncheon gig.
All right.
Let's do some sweet tone right now. Let's do a bone nut.
Just had this hooked up for me, stat.
So, a fantastic job on a bone nut. I mean, that is something that Garrett has certainly turned into an art form. And, you know,
the guy's fast. The House of Bone Nuts.
The 3D house.
Watch out for the cabinet and walking and doing all that kind of stuff.
Right.
He does everything with hand tools. You know, he went to luthier school and kind of, you know, learned to not rely on belt sanders and everything. So he's got these super sharp chisels and these great files and, you know, tools even well above and beyond what I've ever had. So it looks fantastic. But what, you know, so what's the advantage to a bone nut over a plastic nut?
Sustain, I think.
Yeah.
Attack on your open notes, for sure.
Unquestionably, this has more sustain. Now that it had a wooden nut, actually.
Wooden, oh yeah. Something that's it's got a little cushion to it, I don't think would be very good.
No, it doesn't transfer tone much.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
The bone is a nice...
You can tell when you take... Can you grab a blank of plastic and a blank of bone? I mean, when you drop these materials like on a hard surface, you can tell just what it sounds like, right? How it's going to transmit the tone. put Alex on the spot here.
Really,
'cause
too,
I
you kind of
wasn't
want
prepared.
something that's going to be as solid as possible and not... Well, you know what I'm saying. So,
That's plastic,
ooh,
and that's bone.
And drop them on the glass counter right here too.
plastic.
More ceramic-y sounding, you know, it's you can hear it's
Crisper,
brighter,
more-
crisper. Yeah, I mean that really does translate into the way the tone
Yep.
transmits through that material, and like you're saying, much longer lasting too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Plastic nut, you are going to eat through that in no time at all.
Tunability. Less drag. The
Oh,
string
right.
digs
Sure.
into the plastic and it starts to bind, and so often that's the source of tuning problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like my guitar won't stay in tune. When you tune your tuner and you hear that kink, that's the string, you know,
Right.
digging into that.
The rubber properties of the plastic
Exactly. And
grabbing
bone,
onto that metal.
bone is much more, I guess, viscous would be the word. The string can flow through there and not bind up, and the
Sure,
guitar
sure,
stays
sure,
tuned
sure.
better. So that's a big one. Yeah.
Well, right. The many times we have all worked with the material for both saddles and nuts, yeah, when you try and work it on sandpaper or run a file through it, right, it
turns to rubber.
melts.
Right.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit of friction gets it to melt. The plastic is really very kind of rubbery at its.
There's also probably to an extent, I mean, on a scientific level, I want to dull some science.
Science is all right.
You know, I mean, to an extent, there's probably on the bone inherently. There's probably small. You know, it's almost like a talc, like a powder that you would use. You know, to keep your hands dry, and you know, like almost a gymnast.
It has
would-
more of
would
the
use,
properties
you know.
of that, right?
That's just inherently always going to be there for the string to
as
glide
it exists.
against.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can take plastic and make it shiny
Not
on
to
the
say
outside.
that a bone is gonna bone nut is gonna wear out like that. You know, I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a little tiny.
But as it
element of that.
wears, it doesn't change its. I mean, it really has
Right.
to dig in there to bind. Whereas plastic can be smooth on the outside, but as soon as you dig into the inside,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
rubber city or it's friction city
True,
or it's
true.
good.
Well, we've had 40, 50-year-old guitars come through the shop with the original bone nut and saddle, so it definitely does
Yeah,
last.
I mean,
the
the,
last
the,
time,
the
yeah.
form of, I mean, not so much probably now, but the form of plastic over the years too will probably change a little bit, and you know,
Right?
is it
It bends,
outgases or-
melts, shrinks. Bone pretty much. It's
That's it.
dense. It pretty
Well,
much
like,
stays the way it is.
Have you ever found like an old plastic container out in a garage or something, and you grab it and it just crumbles in your hands?
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like the way it breaks
Yeah,
down.
oh,
Yeah,
for
so I
sure.
mean, the same thing happens with nuts and saddles. We see that all the time. We work on them. Just they'll sometimes.
You ever dig up
crumble.
like an old dinosaur bone and it just no? See, that's what I mean.
It's no problem.
Wait a
No
minute.
problem.
Do we have a new product here?
T-Rex
Fossilized
femur
dino
is definitely the best bone nut material.
Dino Strum. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Next month, the Guitar Shop podcast is going to the Badlands. All right, I'm going to do a couple more quick here because I know that Alex has a topic that he is going to lay upon us, and we're running a little
can't
short on
wait for
time.
this.
So let's do.
Suspense is killing me on this one.
How about this one? I'm getting shocked when I jam in my basement. What's going on?
Well, there's mop buckets down there. Maybe you accidentally stepped in a mop bucket.
I know how to remedy it.
Licking the outlet.
All right, what's going on? What's the remedy?
You're an electronics guy. Tell me what's happening there.
Well, I usually lift the ground on whatever amplifier I'm using. Now,
What if you just
I went
lift both of
to
your feet?
school for electronics, and I can't explain it to you, which is kind of scaring me right now.
Oh, scaring me right now.
I know how to remedy it
Let's
because I
say
don't
you're
want to
eating
get
a
my face
sandwich.
fried off.
Well, I mean, hey,
Why is that?
a moment of silence. That is awesome.
This topic has shut us all up.
Right, if you're getting shocked, I'd cut it out. I'd stop right there. That's a bad
You can't hear
sign.
chattering back there. Either they got a pizza they're chewing on, or the ground question came up.
Okay,
If you got a couple union guys in your basement, have them check out the
Please
outlet.
tell me you
'cause
looked
it
into
sounds-
this, Wade, because put me on the spot here.
I'm on the wrong side of the counter right now. I'm on the side that needs advice.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm a longtime basement jammer. So, I mean, first of all, if you eliminate even that it's the basement, most people get shocked when they put their mouth up to a microphone. Which,
Okay,
which
that
basically
could
just
sort
means
of
that
explain.
your
So
PA
you don't
and your
have a
amplifier-
common ground there.
Aha! Common ground. There you go.
Which is what I've been trying to get you guys on for like
So
7 years
okay.
now.
you're becoming the ground for the amplifier you're singing through, or microphone or whatnot.
Zing. Yeah, that's a stinger.
Well,
So
okay,
you need to make something common coming here?
So what I discovered then in phase 2 of my jamming in the basement is when I got shocked, and I'm not touching a microphone, but
The guitar? There's also
a damp concrete floor. So there's definitely some kind of ground
It
thing
can
going
conduct
on. Yeah,
a little bit,
So
yeah.
like whether or not I was
Oh,
wearing
yeah.
like rubber-soled shoes or something, it seemed like I had.
It's probably
see-
because maybe the bottom of the microphone stand is metal. It's coming up to your face.
And if you're tied into outlets that are in the wall, even if you're grounded, if you were barefoot, you might actually get some residual zinger happening there.
All right. But don't ever accuse me of playing guitar barefoot. Ever again.
Well, I mean,
The Maritime Jam Man?
those toe shoes.
Yeah, lifting a
the toe
ground
jam is
has
what I'm
worked.
talking about. Yeah, lifting a ground.
On your side of the, if you're
Well,
getting
here's-
shocked from this system over here,
you
either
flip
lifting
your
the ground.
Yeah,
Or what I've also done is if your guitar amp has any sort of input or output or line out, something that will not affect your amplifier while you're using it, if you plug into that and then plug that cord into the PA to something like that, it will cancel that and make everything calm.
Oh, interesting.
So
You
if
can
you
also
can't figure
take
it out.
what's called a ground lift, which is just a 3-prong to 2-prong adapter. And if you
Right.
just take a 3-prong plug and plug it into a ground lift and plug that into the wall, you're essentially reversing the ground. I think. Check me on this. But the other thing that
I've seen the singer who can't figure it out, and they're like they got to play the gig right away. And I've even seen a guy who took his sock off
Oh, you don't know the pain
and
that I have endured.
put it over the microphone so there was
Homie
some
is not
barrier
playing
there.
this anymore.
And it was like it's really not gonna work.
Call yourself a
'Cause
sound
once you
guy,
get that wet,
understand the ground. Yep.
you're singing into your sock. Still.
This is
It's
where we
wet.
go beyond
And you're
being
getting shocked.
bartenders.
Yes.
Yeah, this is,
But
dear
here,
Abby.
here would be how it used to be is that back in the day when dinosaurs were around and you're using but a lot of the amps had just 2 prongs. There wasn't a 3rd prong that attached to the ground where your house is grounded. You would plug in and you would be attached to that ground. So if Dan was playing guitar with me and we both plugged into the same outlet and we high-fived and we had 3-prong adapters, it would be all good. If Dan had a 2-prong adapter and plugged in a ground loop and we shook hands and we were in Germany, then no, this makes no sense. But no, back in the day, when you plugged in, you'd have 2 grounds and then you'd have a switch that would allow you to reverse the polarity. And then that way, if the PA was plugged into the wall and your guitar was plugged into the wall and there was no ground, you could make sure that everybody was in the same polarity, and that would keep you from getting shocked. Now, the assumption is that we have this 3rd prong that attaches to the ground of the
And that
house.
fixes everything.
And it should fix everything, but it ultimately sometimes doesn't. I think with the jamming in the basement getting shock thing, though, I don't know if that's completely... I think you could be grounded and still get some residual shock. Maybe just from the fact that the basement is
The basement
damp,
floor is wet a
the
little
basement
bit.
floor is wet, and
That whole
there's a
surface is conducting to
a shed load of wiring. Right, and it's
Shed
conducting.
load.
Yeah.
Shed
So
load.
so that's a possibility, in which case, I don't know what you should do. Run a dehumidifier and wear
Or
some
quite
thick rubber
simply,
shoes.
you're assuming that the ground is hooked up on your outlet that you're plugged into in your basement. And
Might have 3
might
prongs
have
and not
fallen
even be
off.
tied in. Yeah.
You might not. If your house is old, it might not even have. There might not even be a ground coming to that.
Okay, clown nose windscreen on the microphone is a must.
But it doesn't really work.
But not a sock.
I mean, to me, if you have to resort to the clown nose microphone, that's just to get through rehearsal at night. But you should really get to the bottom of that.
Anytime I ever play any
Yeah.
gig, I always walk up to the microphone and I go I always
Yep.
before I.
That's always a good idea. And right, I mean, I've been at gigs where they said, I'm getting shocked like a mother effer, and here I'll put
They're
this
like-
clown nose on there.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, come on, really? We're tied into the city power or something, can't we? I mean, you were qualified enough to hook up the system, but you're not qualified enough.
Oh, I have to go put the clown out. These guys want so much from me.
But it's really bad when you go up to the mic, you get about 6 or 8 inches, and it arcs and shoots a bolt of lightning into your braces. That
Yes.
hurts real bad. And when your shoe goes flying off when that happens,
Were you in a Uriah?
Shocked like a mother.
Were you in a Uriah Heep cover band or something?
Oh yeah, I was in the pre-ground days, baby. We used to. Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, oh boy.
All right.
We didn't know what that switch did. Is that a standby? Bop. Yeah.
Take a moment.
All right. I'm good. All right. Go ahead. Wait, where are we?
Wow.
Well,
where did he go? Just
I was on a ground fury.
this is definitely Paranormal Activity 4. 'cause
So,
that was
as you can tell-
a major possession.
Please fix it right away, because years of
electronic
exposure
possession.
to a ground, to the face.
Your skin gets kind of leathery. I don't remember what we talking about.
Can't we have a portable
My
version
memory ain't
of
so good no more.
of that
I don't know if I'm
guy- of
laughing
the
because
guy's
it's good or
head
sad or
battered
what. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. All right,
Okay,
let's just
Save
move
me.
on.
well, we're going to move on because Alex has
Well, let's have Alex do his thing.
Alex
I-
has a surprise topic for us, which
I don't know what that was.
I don't know if it's going to require
Shocked like a-
tikis or
or pads or helmets or what's gonna go? What's gonna happen?
but I'm getting my clown.
What do you mean? You didn't get the memo about the helmets?
No, go
You didn't
for
bring
it.
your helmet. Oh,
I
that's
didn't.
freaking great.
All right,
We got 2 helmets and 3 dudes.
what you
Nixon
got?
just jumped out with my knapsack. No, insert joke.
Can you translate? What's going
I cannot.
Nixon just jumped out with my knapsack.
He's giving the punchlines to all of his best material.
Oh, it's A-list stuff.
All right,
You ever
so
see a
what-
one-eared elephant? Nixon jumped out with my knapsack. Okay.
all right, Belda, what do you got?
So it's
Cut that
all
all
on
out
me
of
now to bring her
It is
home.
all bring her home.
I got nothing here. I got nothing. No, we were the only. I just was thinking. All right, let's have an uncomfortable moment of silence.
Okay.
Okay.
What happens in a ground lift situation?
One episode we had talked about. We remember the episode where we dug through receipts from about 10 years ago.
Episode 1, I believe it was.
And we were
Where I took
looking at-
invoices from 1989 and showed how cheap
Yes.
guitars
So
were.
people would walk in and go, "Hey, where are all the vintage guitars?" And Wade would go, "Well, there's a late '70s deluxe Les Paul right there."
That's not vintage.
Yeah, right. So I thought it would be fun to just pick you guys' brains and pontificate myself, if I could use a $10 college word. What is this? Has the price gone up? And
Nixon,
talk about
Nixon ran away with my $10 college.
2 parachutes. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got 3 guys in 2 parachutes. No, it's all right.
So where are we
Nixon
going
just
with
jumped
this?
out with my
I want to
knapsack.
pontificate on his receipt, something or other.
I've been shocked.
I'm the
that-
translator. I'm going to take a
Okay.
shot here.
Okay.
I think what he'd like us to do is each try and pick something kind of cool that's affordable now that's going to be worth a
Right,
lot
if
of money.
somebody
in the
walked
future.
in today and asked that question, where are all the cool vintage guitars today?
What's the $400, $500, $600, $800 guitar right now that
That's
in
the
20
go-to
in 20
guy,
years,
yeah.
if somebody can bring into a shop and go, can you believe I paid $500 for this at Wade's Guitar
Or if
Shop
I-
in 19 something,
1998.
2012?
But right, if I ask
In
you,
19,000?
Dan, I want to buy a guitar for my kid and I want it to be investment that he can pass on to his, what are the Gibson and Fender, or what are the guitars of today that will be the major players of tomorrow?
You want to go first?
no.
All right. Well,
I
I'll
want
go.
to think a second. Because
I'll go first, and I'm gonna throw out a couple. And being that this was my story originally, I'll sort of evolve a little bit on that. Okay, one, because we were just talking about the increasing rarity of woods, I would say, something like a Martin D28, because I will bet you anything that in 25 years there will no longer be a decent solid rosewood dreadnought like a Martin D28. That they're going to either be reduced on the quality of the rosewood that they get, if they can even get rosewood at all. And depending on the way that the laws go in particular countries, if India decided to close the door on rosewood right now, companies like Martin and Taylor, and even for that matter,
They all
Fender
get
Gibson,
their
everybody
their
for
wood from the
fingerboards and
same-
everything.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all coming from India. If India closed the door right now, you'd be done for.
I can't think of a guitar right off the bat, but one thing I have noticed, the price of particularly Fender bassman heads from the 70s.
Oh yeah,
Things like that, around
yeah.
they're selling for around $500, $650. I find that incredibly
We've got a
Yeah.
bandmaster over there for what, 6 or something
Yeah.
like that.
I
And
would-
It's chimey as all get out. It sounds amazing.
And that's a hand-wired amp from the 70s.
Handware, it's 1967.
1967.
So
Yes,
we're talking
yeah.
about 60s amps, and here's just we're a little off topic, but the
I
thing
can't,
that,
in my mind, old a Marshall from that era
Yeah.
is going to be 24 or 100.
right,
you
or
know,
if that was a Bandmaster reverb,
or $2,000 at least.
a
Yeah,
Bandmaster
yeah.
reverb would go for some
But-
serious change.
You're telling me there's a lot of difference between those amps?
Well,
No way.
one of the factors is, and we were.
I mean, as far as in quality, I mean, sound,
Oh no,
yeah.
no, right. You mean
But
between the
equally
Marshall
as
and the
good.
Fender, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, made in very similar.
I mean, right now would be
ways.
the time to start buying up silver. I mean,
Silver
if I had the
City,
money, I would
agreed.
start buying up silver face. The little heads.
Or
The
just
little-
the non reverb stuff in general.
absolutely
because
the non-reverb
that's what I
stuff.
think it is. Is like
Yeah,
if
the
you
Basemans,
look
the
at
50
all
waters,
reverb
the-
stuff, it's bank. You look at all the non reverb stuff, and it's crept up.
And what
a
is
little
Marshall?
bit.
What
Yeah.
what Marshall amp has ever had reverb on?
No, but that's
And they're like incredibly expensive
but they got
and
their
the same
own-
quality and
They got their own
just as
ground there,
unique
though.
a sound.
Yeah.
Okay, for a Bandmaster though, what you're going to want is the set. I think the money though is going to be in the match
Sure,
set. You
sure,
got, you got the head
The
and,
cab
a
and the-
212
yeah.
bottom.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to go around getting a head for $600.
Or a combo. Here's what I think is going on there, though: is it's the reverb aspect, because the valuable.
Fine, I don't need it.
Well, you don't, and there's lots of good reverb options. To me, back in the
Yeah.
day, I had to have a Fender reverb. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
got a Fender, was to have the clean sound and the spring reverb, and that was the be-all, end-all. Or you could have
Yeah.
the Marshall, which was the big crunch in the wall. Those were the two. I mean, those were definitely the two. But
Right.
I mean, I used to say I could have carpeted my floor with Showman amps and Bandmasters and stuff because I used to pick them up for $75
Yeah.
or $1.20 or I
Insane.
probably got 6 of them from Wade over the year, and I never
I mean, to
used
me-
them. But I just went, it's a hand wired.
I guess to me it's crazy
$100,
because
Yeah.
I owned twins for a long time. I never used the reverb.
Yeah.
I never used I know it's sacrilege. Never used the reverb. Never used the tremolo.
Right.
I mean, I love the clean,
Well, that's the other
totally
thing.
dry,
That's
and
the other thing.
and it
Yeah.
loves pedals.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there's so many
Absolutely.
great pedal options, and those things just
The
Eat 'em
reverb
up,
and trim
right.
though is a factor, and here's the other thing: there are 20 wonderful tremolo pedals on
but
the
fine.
market now.
At what point are none of those amps going to be available?
Well, I'm just saying. Well, yeah,
And you
yeah.
want that basic, warm, clean, beautiful, velvety sound of it, and it's right. And
Oh,
you
yeah,
used to be able to
yeah.
get it for $600. Hell,
Yeah, yeah.
What's
you
yours?
Well, the ones that I always bring up, just in terms of a modern day guitar, I agree with both of you. I think
I think aging guitar shop employees
are going to be
for real cheap
no,
right
they're
now.
just they're gonna burn them like
And
wood chips.
just
and
gonna go
thinner
up
the
in
better.
value.
Well, our bones, once, you
Sure,
can't, you
make-
can't get bone
just think
anymore.
of the
from making
saddles
bone.
you can make out of
You've
this
been
thing.
inhaling
Yeah.
so much bone dust from these dinosaurs. That you
Right, my lungs is made out of bone by now. No, but I would agree with both of you that those would both be really good investments in general. And I would say that behind that is any sort of really high-end, well-made guitar, even if it's not a Martin, a Santa Cruz or whatever, would still be worth a lot in the future when Rosewood goes aside. So amps that are hand-wired or of a very good quality, guitars that are handmade or of a very good quality, those are all conceptually very good investments. Specifically, I would say, if you looked at a company like Heritage, which is the company that sort of continued in the Kalamazoo factory post-Gibson, and literally were the higher-ups in the Gibson factory who started the company and who, and they're gone now. They passed the torch on. But nonetheless, the new people might be great and they might be making wonderful guitars, but that lineage is now broken. That direct connection to the real Gibson. They moved to Nashville in the 70s, slowly began moving to the 70s, and by about 1985 they were gone. That's about the time that Heritage started, and Heritage, really old, wonderful guys. Wade got to meet them one day, went to their factory, little tiny factory, knocked on the door to do a tour.
Well, they're at the old
Yeah.
Gibson factory
They're
in
at the old
Kalamazoo,
Gibson
Michigan.
factory. Yeah. So they used part of it, and Wade went in there and thought he was going to go for a tour, and nobody was there. He's like, hey, and some old dude came out all covered in sawdust and said, come on back. So I think the Heritage guitars that were made by the original Heritage guys from 80 through the 90s, I think as they got a little bit older, they did have some problems, and maybe not related to their age, may have just been. But I think the guitars were great. I think they really were, from in the 80s all the way through to the early 90s. They were exceptional guitars. And the funny thing is, too, Gibson walked away from that factory and left all the wood that they had, old growth, maples
Machines,
and mahoganies
everything.
and all the machines and so on. And the know-how that these guys, when Wade went to go see it, their tech, the Heritage tech, was working on one of Scotty Moore's guitars. Scotty Moore, who used to play with Elvis, still had this old tech who was working for Heritage.
That's the only guy he would
he's
go
the only
to.
guy that he would go to, So these guys were the real deal. So I would say any of the Heritage guitars, wonderful guitars, pretty on the eyes. You can pick up a Heritage Les Paul for $800-900, probably be worth 2-3 times that in 10-15 years, I'll bet you. The other company similar would be G&L, Music Man 2, with the amps as well. I think those Music Man amps, underpriced, still made by Leo.
The Music Man amps.
Right,
Don't
so
even
those
get
would
me
be great.
started on those.
And the Music Man basses, the early Music Man basses, and even the guitars, an old Sabre. I bet you those will go for some money someday. But the G&Ls, I think, were really good. The guitars built by Leo and George Fullerton are just wonderful guitars. They're not for everybody, but again, it's a small company, handmade. I think those will be great investments. And then just to add,
especially from the Leo era.
From the Leo era,
so
right.
collectors
There's
are really
new
going to
stuff
look
now. But
Leo died, I think, in '94. So I mean, anything
pre-94.
up to '94 is
yeah,
gonna be
80s,
big,
late
big,
80s
big.
through '94, and they're wonderful guitars. So they're deserved of the reputation, but they're still, you can still pick up G&Ls pretty cheap. And the last thing I would say would still be tied to the great ones. We look at, I don't think there'll ever be an example of solid body guitars going for the kind of money that they did in the 50s, because that was the birth of the solid body guitar and the birth of the rock and roll, and all of these things, all of these stars aligned. But you can still pick up a Duo Sonic from Fender, or if you want to look at something later, a Mustang. Mustangs are still going really cheap, early Mustangs. So I would look at a lot of the student model or odd ducks and things like that.
We just sold a '67 Coronado 12-string for like $1,100.
Yeah,
Well,
that was,
but
that was amazing.
you hit a huge.
Starcasters.
That's the huge thing. It's the sort of outcast thing that, for some reason,
People love Jaguars.
it's going to
and
be a little bit more
Jazzmasters now.
a little bit more available, and then someone's going to say, "Oh, on the Bandmaster, because it doesn't have reverb and tremolo, that used to really
Color the sound.
really color the sound."
Yeah, right. Right.
There's
It'll be
and
the opposite
these
will
sorts
be
of
true.
things are
Right,
going to
yeah.
start, and then you're going to have people who are going to start. I bet you're going to have people who are going to start modding the old Fender. You bypass every, and all of a sudden,
Right. Take that reverb circuit out there. You got an amp.
It becomes like it's almost like they remake. It's like modding pedals, and so you remaking old stuff to make it just as exciting as it was way back then.
And look what people are even paying nowadays for new printed circuit board garbage. You can buy a $600 or $700 amp that's wired by some robot, and the jack farts out on you 6 months into your tour, and the transformer goes 6 months later, and you can just replace those circuit boards. You just plug them in with the. I don't want to. I just want my amp to work. And for the same money, you can get a Bandmaster or a.
All right, so we're short on time. So let me throw a wrench into the works here.
We could do this all night.
We could. So here's a quick question then, kind of spin this whole thing around. Back in the day when Japan in the 60s and 70s first started making guitars, Americans didn't want them. But eventually, they're pretty cool. Ibanez, eventually the Fender reissue stuff in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Great stuff. Well, at that point, Korea started growing. Well, the Japanese stuff's pretty cool. They're really making great guitars there. We don't want the Korean stuff. Now we're to China. China is mass producing all the guitars. Is there potentially a Chinese product that's going to be collectible? Because most anything you look at now that's just made in China, it's utility only.
It's certainly possible. I think it's certainly possible for a couple of reasons. One is the Korean stuff is going up in value.
Right.
We just put out a Korean Squire, and it's a well-made guitar. It has a lot of the spirit of a '60s Fender, and it's still 300 and whatever in the threes.
Right.
The higher end Korean stuff, right now we're selling Korean Les Pauls and Korean Epiphones for a little bit more.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, for a little bit more
I agree.
than the Chinese stuff. And for good reason, they are better, But at the same time, if
So
you
does
had
this
asked me
mean
this
that-
Korean question 10 years ago, I would have been like,
So this means
Yeah,
in
so-
the long run, guitars just through the years are just completely declining in quality. I mean, really.
soon
across
they'll
the
be
board?
made in Burma under,
Because Japanese is better than Korean. Korean is
Yeah.
better than Chinese.
Right.
You know, that's a scary thing to think about.
Well, here would be the
50 years ago, it was the American guitar was what everybody wanted, and mostly it was Americans playing guitars. Other than you
Which
had
also makes
traditional
it-
stuff in Europe,
makes it-
Spanish and
you're starting to get a real scary gap between, American-made stuff, if it is made the way it used to be made, and something Chinese. And where would we go next from China? I don't know.
Yeah.
Might have to invent another Asian.
I'm going to have you save that thought because we're out of time here.
Pick it up
We
again
got to
from-
run.
Yeah.
This has been the Guitar Shop Podcast, Season 3, Episode 2. Thank everybody so much for joining us. Definitely check us out. The website is wadesguitarshop.com. Click on the podcast link. Please send us questions, comments, anything, stories. Stuff from the previous podcast if you want to comment on, question on. Definitely don't keep it just on the current stuff. That's at Wade's Guitar Shop at sbcglobal.net. That is so dry. Check us out. We are on the iTunes Store, Moreau, Zoom Marketplace. We now have a channel, YouTube channel. It's the Guitar Shop Podcast on the YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook.
You can't throw an address on the internet without hitting us.
Why are you going to wear a dress for?
Daniel, thank you so much for making it tonight. That is
Oh, yeah.
Dan is back. Yeah, that was great, man. It was nice to have you back in the chair. Yeah.
We're going to keep you in the loop, definitely.
doing it.
Jocelyn's been running the show solo tonight, technically speaking. So, Jocelyn, thank you so much.
That's going to hurt. We can stitch that up.
Jocelyn's clone over here.
Oh, I forgot about camera 2. I've been ignoring camera 2 over here. Hey.
All right, we'll be back very soon. We've already got the next podcast
Yeah.
written, so we're going to have to dream up how we're going to bring it to you. Thank you so much.
All right, it's quitting time, folks. Time for a couple of bowls.
And I said, look, man.
It comes down here.
And I said, now you funny too.
Oh,
Now you're funny too.
that would be great to hear Christopher Walken doing
He said,
John Lee Hooker.
everyone funny. Now you funny too.